Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the stars change color as they dropped out of hyperspace. After 6 months of travel, they had finally reached their destination. The neutral station Kepler-7 floated before them like a giant metal flower, its spinning arms reaching out into the darkness of space. "We made it," said Navigator Ben Rodriguez from his station. His voice carried a mix of excitement and nervousness that Jake felt too. This was the biggest moment in human history. First contact with the Centauri Alliance, a group of 7 alien species that controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. Jake turned to look at his crew. 200 of Earth's best and brightest filled the ship. Scientists, diplomats, engineers, and soldiers, all chosen for this historic mission. The most important person on the ship was Dr. Lisa Campbell. Lisa stood near the main view screen, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and in her hands she held a small metal case. Inside that case was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Music, art, literature, and stories from every culture on Earth. 3 years of work had gone into preparing this collection. "Are you ready for this, Lisa?" Jake asked. She smiled, but he could see the worry in her eyes. "As ready as anyone can be for something like this. We're about to meet 7 different alien species at once. My xenobiology training only goes so far." Chief Engineer Amy Watson looked up from her control panel. "Station is requesting docking permission. They're assigning us to Bay 7. "Take us in, Ben," Jake ordered. The massive station grew larger as they approached. Jake had seen pictures, but the real thing was incredible. The station was 5 miles across, built by the Alliance as a neutral meeting place for different species. Each arm of the station belonged to a different member species. "I'm picking up a lot of chatter on the communication channels," said Communications Officer Steve Collins. "Sounds like half the galaxy wants to get a look at us." Jake wasn't surprised. Humanity was new to galactic politics. For the past 50 years, Earth had been sending radio signals into space, trying to make contact. Finally, 3 years ago, the Alliance had responded. They invited Earth to send a diplomatic mission to discuss possible membership. The docking went smoothly. Jake had expected it to be more complicated, but Alliance technology was far ahead of Earth's. The station's computers guided their ship into the docking bay without any problems. "Atmospheric readings look good," Amy reported. "The station is maintaining Earth normal air pressure and oxygen levels in the diplomatic sections." "That's thoughtful of them," Lisa said. Jake hoped it was thoughtfulness and not something else. He had read the intelligence reports. Not all Alliance species were friendly to newcomers. The Xanthari in particular had a reputation for being aggressive and territorial. An hour later, Jake and Lisa walked through the station's corridors toward the main meeting hall. The walls were covered with strange symbols and artwork from different worlds. Jake tried not to stare, but everything was so alien and fascinating. "Remember," Lisa whispered as they walked, "we're here to learn and make friends. Earth needs allies out here." The meeting hall was enormous. 7 different sections surrounded a central platform, each designed for a different species. Jake could see various aliens in each section. Some looked almost human, while others were completely unlike anything he had ever imagined. But his attention was drawn to one particular section. The Xanthari area was filled with tall, gray-skinned beings wearing dark armor. Their leader, Ambassador Vexcalar, stood apart from the others. Even from a distance, Jake could feel the hostility radiating from the alien. "The Xanthari don't look happy to see us," he murmured to Lisa. "Give them time," she replied. "Maybe they're just cautious." The ceremony began with speeches from each Alliance species. Jake listened through his translator device as each ambassador welcomed humanity to the galaxy. Most seemed genuinely pleased to meet them. The Xanthari ambassador spoke last. "We acknowledge the arrival of this new species," Vexcalar said, his voice cold and harsh even through the translator. "We will watch them carefully to ensure they do not threaten the stability of our region." It wasn't exactly a warm welcome. Then it was Lisa's turn. She walked to the central platform carrying her small case. Jake felt proud watching her. She had worked so hard for this moment. "People of the Alliance," Lisa began, her voice clear and strong. "We come from Earth with open hearts and open minds. We bring gifts of our culture to share with you, hoping to learn about yours in return." She opened the case and pulled out a small device. "This contains the music, art, and stories of humanity. We offer it freely as a symbol of friendship." She began to walk toward the center of the platform where a ceremonial table waited. It was supposed to be a simple gesture. Place the gift on the table, step back, and let the celebration begin. But Vexcalar had other plans. The Xanthari ambassador moved faster than Jake thought possible. A weapon appeared in his hand, some kind of energy pistol that glowed with purple. "Light, threatening gesture," Vexcalar shouted. "The human attacks." Time seemed to slow down. Jake reached for his sidearm, but he was too far away. Lisa turned toward the Xanthari, confusion on her face. She was still holding the cultural gift, still trying to complete her peaceful mission. The plasma weapon fired. The energy beam hit Lisa in the chest, and she simply vanished. One moment she was there, the next there was nothing but empty air and the smell of ozone. The meeting hall erupted in chaos. Aliens from different species shouted in their own languages. Some seemed horrified by what had happened. Others appeared to be arguing about what it meant. Jake's hand was on his weapon now, but he forced himself not to draw it. He was one human surrounded by hundreds of aliens. If he started shooting, his entire crew would die. She was making a threatening gesture. Vexcalar announced to the hall, "My actions were justified under Alliance security protocols." "That's impossible," Jake shouted back. She was carrying a gift. She was trying to place it on the ceremonial table, but even as he spoke, Jake could see that it didn't matter. The other Alliance species were already backing down. The Xanthari were too powerful, too important to the Alliance's military strength. They wouldn't challenge Vexcalar's version of events. An hour later, Jake sat in the station's administrative office while Alliance officials explained their decision. The incident would be ruled a cultural misunderstanding Dr. Campbell had unknowingly made, a gesture that Xanthari culture interpreted as threatening. Ambassador Vexcalar had acted within his rights to defend himself. The Alliance offered compensation, medical supplies, some basic technology, and a formal apology for the misunderstanding. They hoped Earth would understand that these things happen when different cultures met for the first time. Jake wanted to scream at them. He wanted to draw his weapon and start shooting. He wanted to call for the entire Earth fleet to come and turn this station into space dust. Instead, he accepted the compensation and prepared to return home. 3 days later, Jake stood in the living room of a small house in Colorado. Mary Campbell, Lisa's sister, took the box of personal effects with steady hands. She had been a Marine colonel before retiring to work for Earth's Defense Department. Jake could see the controlled rage in her eyes. "Tell me exactly what happened," Mary said quietly. Jake told her everything. How Lisa had been trying to complete a peaceful ceremony. How the Xanthari ambassador had murdered her and claimed it was self-defense. How the Alliance had chosen politics over justice. When he finished, Mary was quiet for a long moment. "Earth is going to let this slide, isn't it?" she finally asked. Jake nodded. "President Carter thinks we need to be practical. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Starting a war with the Alliance would be suicide." Mary looked at the box in her hands. Inside were Lisa's personal belongings, including her research notes on peaceful contact with alien species. "Maybe the president is right," Mary said. "Maybe we need to be patient." But Jake could see something dangerous growing in her eyes, something that would change everything. He just didn't know it yet. 3 years had passed since Lisa Campbell died on Kepler 7 station. To the galaxy, it seemed like Earth had accepted the loss and moved on. Human ships rarely left their home system. Earth's representatives sent polite messages to the Alliance, but made no demands for justice. The Xanthari began telling other species that humans were weak and cowardly. They were wrong. Mary Campbell stood in the underground facility beneath the Colorado mountains, watching her team work. As the new director of strategic defense, she had spent every day of the past 3 years preparing for war. The sign on the wall read Project Prometheus, but everyone just called it the plan. How are we doing on the new engines? Mary asked. Dr. Richard Hayes, her chief scientist. Richard had been Lisa's research partner before her death. Now he worked 16 hours a day developing weapons to kill the aliens who had murdered his friend. The quantum tunnel drive is ready for testing, Richard said, wiping sweat from his forehead. We can move a ship from Earth to Xanthari space. In 2 days instead of 6 months. The aliens won't see us coming. Mary nodded and walked to the next section of the facility. Here, Danny Foster was training the Shadow Corps, Earth's new Special Forces unit. These soldiers were different from regular military. They studied alien psychology, learned to think like their enemies, and practiced fighting in low-gravity environments. Show me what you've learned about Xanthari combat tactics, Mary said to Danny. Danny pulled up a holographic display. They're aggressive but predictable. They rely on superior numbers and firepower. They expect enemies to fight them directly, ship to ship, army to army. They've never faced an opponent who uses stealth and misdirection. Good. What about their weaknesses? Danny said immediately. They think they're superior to everyone else. They underestimate opponents who appear weak. They have a rigid command structure. Take out their leaders, and the rest fall apart. Mary smiled grimly. The Xanthari had made a mistake when they killed Lisa. They had given Earth a reason to study them, to learn everything about their society and military. Now Mary knew more about Xanthari battle tactics than most Xanthari commanders. She walked to the final section of the facility, where Admiral Jake Morrison was inspecting the new warships. Jake had changed since Lisa's death. The easygoing exploration captain was gone, replaced by a hard man who dreamed of revenge. The first Vengeance-class dreadnought is ready for launch, Jake reported. It doesn't look like much, but it's got more firepower than anything the Alliance has ever seen. Mary looked at the ship through the viewing window. Jake was right. It looked small and simple compared to the massive Xanthari warships she had seen in intelligence reports. But appearances could be deceiving. What about the resonance cascade weapons? Stalled and tested, one shot can disable an entire enemy fleet by causing quantum cascade failures in their power systems. Their ships will just stop working. Mary felt a cold satisfaction. The aliens thought Earth was primitive and weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Her communication device buzzed. It was President Helen Carter calling from Washington. Mary, we just received some disturbing intelligence from our agent in Alliance space. You need to see this immediately. An hour later, Mary sat in the president's office, staring at a video screen. The image showed a Xanthari medical facility on their homeworld. In one of the cells, a human woman sat on a metal bed, looking thin and tired. That's Lisa, Mary whispered. President Carter nodded. She didn't die on Kepler-7. The plasma weapon was set to stun, not kill. They've been holding her prisoner for 3 years, using her for medical experiments. Mary felt rage building inside her chest. We have to get her out. It's not that simple. She's on Xanthari Prime, the most heavily defended world in Alliance space. A rescue mission would be suicide. Mary studied the video more carefully. Her sister looked older, weaker, but she was alive. How did we get this footage? Dr. Hayes has been working undercover as a researcher in Alliance space. He's been feeding us intelligence about Xanthari military capabilities. This came from his network of contacts. The president turned off the video. Mary, I know what you're thinking. But we can't risk everything for one person, even Lisa. Then we wait and watch, Mary said. But inside, she was already planning. If the government wouldn't authorize a rescue mission, she would find another way. 2 weeks later, Mary was back in the Colorado facility when the alarm started blaring. Every screen in the command center showed the same thing, a live broadcast. From Xanthari Prime. The Xanthari had built a large stage in their capital city. Thousands of aliens filled the streets to watch. Ambassador Vex Kalar stood at the center of the stage, holding a plasma rifle. Citizens of the Alliance, Vex Kalar announced. Today we demonstrate what happens to species that dare to threaten. Xanthari authority. Guards brought Lisa onto the stage. She could barely walk, but she held her head high. Even after 3 years of imprisonment and experimentation, she maintained her dignity. Any last words, human? Vexcaller asked. Lisa looked directly into the camera. Her voice was weak but clear. Tell Earth that some things are worth fighting for, and some prices must be paid in full. Vexcaller raised his weapon. Let this be a warning to all who would challenge us. The plasma bolt hit Lisa in the chest. This time, there was no mistake. She fell to the stage and did not move. Mary watched her sister die a second time. Around her, the entire facility went silent. Every person in the room understood what they had just witnessed. President Carter appeared on the main screen within minutes. Her face was pale but determined. My fellow Americans, she began. 3 years ago, we chose restraint when Dr. Lisa Campbell was apparently killed during a diplomatic mission. We believed in the value of patience and peace. We were wrong. The President's voice grew stronger. The Zenthari have proven that they see mercy as weakness. They have shown that they will exploit our desire for peace. They have made it clear that they view humanity as inferior and expendable. Mary felt her heart pounding as the President continued. Today, the Zenthari executed Dr. Campbell in a public spectacle designed to intimidate other species. They killed her once, and Earth let that slide. The second time, they will learn the price of their cruelty. The President's image was replaced by military orders. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier that Earth had spent 3 years preparing was being activated. Admiral Morrison appeared on the screen. All personnel report to battle stations. Operation Campbell is now authorized. We launch in 24 hours. Mary looked around the facility that had been her world for 3 years. Every person here had worked toward this moment. They had sacrificed their personal lives, their families, their peace of mind, all for this day. She picked up her communication device and sent a message to Danny Foster. Begin final preparations for ground assault. I want to lead the first wave personally. Danny's reply came back immediately. Are you sure about this, Director? Mary looked at the frozen image of her sister on the screen. Lisa's final words echoed. In her mind, some prices must be paid in full. I'd never been more sure of anything in my life, Mary replied. The time for patience was over. The time for mercy had passed. The Zenthari had made their choice when they killed Lisa the first time. Now they would face the consequences of killing her again. Earth was going to war. And this time, there would be no restraint. The news of Lisa Campbell's execution spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours, every major city had crowds of people gathering in the streets. Some carried signs demanding justice. Others simply stood in silence, watching the news reports. On giant screens, Mary Campbell sat in her office at the Colorado facility. Reading intelligence reports about Zenthari Prime, the planet was a fortress. Orbital defense platforms surrounded it like a metal ring. Ground-based weapons could destroy ships from space. The Zenthari military headquarters was built inside a mountain, protected by layers of armor and energy shields. It's impossible, said Colonel Tom Brady, looking over the defense plans. No one has ever successfully attacked Zenthari Prime. The casualties would be enormous. Mary didn't look up from her reports. Then we don't attack it conventionally. Dr. Richard Hayes entered the room, carrying a datapad. His face was grim. I just finished analyzing the broadcast from the execution. The medical scanners picked up something interesting. He activated a holographic display showing Lisa's final moments. Look at her hands.
Ow!
She's making small gestures with her fingers. It's not random. She's using the sign language we developed for our research team. Mary leaned forward. What is? She's saying, coordinates. She's giving us the exact location of the Zenthari command center and the access codes for their security systems. She spent 3 years learning their systems from the inside. The room fell silent. Even in her final moments, Lisa had been thinking about Earth's future. She had given them the keys to the enemy's fortress. Admiral Jake Morrison entered the briefing room an hour later. Behind him came the commanders of Earth's new fleet. These weren't the same people who had gone on the peaceful diplomatic mission 3 years ago. War had changed them all. The Terran Defense Fleet is ready to deploy, Jake announced. 200 ships, including 12 Vengeance-class dreadnoughts. Every weapon system has been tested. Every crew member knows their mission. Mary stood and walked to the main display screen. The Xanthari think they've won. They believe their public execution of Lisa was a show of strength that will keep other species in line. They're wrong. She activated a star map showing the route to Xanthari space. Intelligence reports indicate they're not expecting any response from Earth. They're grand. Fleet is scattered across multiple systems, conducting routine patrols. Their homeworld defenses are at normal levels. Danny Foster, now wearing the black uniform of Shadow Corps, stepped forward. My teams are ready for ground operations. We've studied Xanthari psychology for 3 years. We know how they think, how they fight, how they react to pressure. What about the other Alliance species? Asked Colonel Brady. Will they interfere? Mary shook her head. They're scared. The Xanthari execution was meant to intimidate them too. They'll stay neutral as long as we only target Xanthari forces. President Carter appeared on the communication screen. Mary, I need to know that you understand what we're about to do. This isn't just revenge. This is a statement to the entire galaxy about what happens when someone kills our people. I understand, Madam President. The Xanthari chose to make Lisa's death a public spectacle. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans are weak and disposable. We're going to show them something different. President nodded. Operation Campbell is authorized. You have complete authority to use any means necessary to neutralize the Xanthari threat. After the communication ended, Mary looked around. The room at the faces of Earth's military leadership. These people had given up 3 years of their lives to prepare for this moment. They had families they hadn't seen, dreams they had set aside, all for the chance to make the Xanthari pay. I want to make something clear, Mary said. This isn't about conquest. We're not trying to build an empire or steal resources. This is about justice. The Xanthari killed my sister twice, experimented on her. They tortured her. They executed her for entertainment. She paused, letting her words sink in. When we're done, the Xanthari will never again be able to threaten innocent people. But we're not monsters. We won't kill civilians, won't destroy their culture, or remove their ability to make war, nothing more. Admiral Morrison activated the tactical displays. The fleet will use quantum tunnel drives to bypass their sensor networks. We'll appear directly in Xanthar space before they know we're coming. Phase 1 is the destruction of their grand fleet. Phase 2 is the neutralization of their homeworld defenses. Phase 3 is ground operations to capture their leadership. Danny Foster added, Shadow Corps will target their command structure. We've identified every major military leader, every government official, every person who has the authority to order attacks on other species. They'll be captured or eliminated within the first hour of the ground assault. Mary felt a cold satisfaction. As she listened to the battle plans, Xanthari had spent years believing they were superior to humanity. They had used their military strength to intimidate weaker species. They had killed Lisa because they thought there would be no consequences. How long until we're ready to launch? Mary asked. 6 hours, Jake replied. The crews are making final preparations now. Mary walked to the window, overlooking the hidden fleet. Earth's new warships sat in underground launch bays, waiting for their moment. They looked small and simple compared to the massive Xanthari vessels she had seen in intelligence reports. But she knew what they were capable of. There's something else, Dr. Hayes said quietly. I've been monitoring Xanthari communications. They're planning more executions. They captured 3 human traitors last month, and they're planning to kill them publicly next week. Mary's hands clenched into fists. Then we're just in time. She activated the facility's communication system. All personnel, this is Director Campbell. In 6 hours, we launched the largest military operation in human history. We're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting for every innocent person who might become the Xanthari's next victim. Her voice echoed through the facility. 3 years ago, they killed Dr. Lisa Campbell and called it a misunderstanding. Today, they executed her as entertainment. They think we're weak. They think we're cowards. They think we'll accept their cruelty in silence. Mary paused, thinking of her sister's final words. They're about to learn that mercy is a choice, not a weakness, and we're choosing not to show it anymore. The facility erupted in activity as thousands of personnel began final preparations. Ships were fueled, weapons were loaded, and assault teams checked their equipment one last time. Mary returned to her office and opened a secure communication channel to the fleet commanders. "This is Operation Campbell. Authorization code, Justice. For Lisa, all ships prepare for immediate departure." The response came back from every ship in the fleet. "Justice for Lisa. We are ready." Mary looked at the photograph on her desk. Lisa smiled back at her, holding the cultural gift she had tried to present to the Alliance 3 years ago. A gift of peace that had been answered with murder. "They killed you once, and we let it slide," Mary whispered to the photograph. "The second time, they are going to learn what a mistake that was." The countdown began. In 6 hours, the Zenthari would discover that humanity's patience had limits, and they were about to reach them. Admiral Kestrel stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor displays with growing confusion. The Zenthari Grand Fleet had been patrolling their territory when the humans appeared. 200 small ships had dropped out of hyperspace, at the edge of Zenthari space, moving slowly toward their homeworld. "Are they serious?" asked his second-in-command, looking at the tactical display. 200 ships against our entire fleet? Kestrel studied the readings. The human fleet looked pathetic compared to his 3,000 warships. Their vessels were small and simple, with basic weapon systems and light armor. It would be a massacre. "Open communications to the human fleet," he ordered. Admiral Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm and determined, showing no fear despite being completely outnumbered. Human Admiral Kestrel said with amusement, "You are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Jake's response was broadcast on all frequencies so every ship in both fleets could hear it. "You made one mistake. You assumed mercy was weakness. You're about to learn the difference." Kestrel laughed. "Your threats mean nothing. You have 200 ships. We have 3,000. Simple mathematics." "Math can be tricky," Jake replied. "Let me show you." Battle began, as Kestrel expected. His ships opened fire on the human fleet with their most powerful weapons. Plasma beams and missile salvos streaked across space toward the small Earth vessels. But something was wrong. The weapons hit their targets, creating massive explosions and clouds of debris. But when the smoke cleared, the human ships were still. They're completely undamaged. "What kind of armor do they have?" demanded KEX-THRL. His weapons officer checked the readings twice. "Sir, our weapons definitely hit them. The energy signatures confirm direct impacts, but there's no damage at all." What the Zenthari didn't know was that they weren't fighting 200 ships. They were fighting 200 real ships, hidden among 2,000 holographic decoys. Project Mirror had created the most advanced sensor spoofing system ever built. The Zenthari were shooting at ghosts, while the real human fleet remained invisible. "Spread the fleet out," Kestrel ordered. "Surround them and attack from all directions." As the Zenthari ships moved to encircle what they thought was the human fleet, they triggered the second part of Earth's plan. Human ships began appearing throughout Zenthari space, dropping out of quantum tunnel drives behind enemy positions. The small fleet at the border had been a distraction. The real attack force had bypassed all Zenthari defenses using Lisa's access codes and intelligence about their patrol routes. Now Earth's forces were everywhere at once. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from 17 different systems. Human ships are attacking our bases throughout the sector." Kestrel stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red warning lights marked human attacks across hundreds of light years. It was impossible. How had they moved so many ships without being detected? "It's all units. Return to defend your assigned systems," he ordered. But as soon as his ships began to move, the real trap was revealed. The human vessels activated their resonance cascade weapons simultaneously across dozens of targets. The weapons didn't just destroy ships. They created quantum chain reactions that disabled everything within light minutes. Zenthari vessels that had been charging toward human positions suddenly stopped dead in space. Their engines went silent, their weapons powered down, their life support systems failed. "What's happening to our ships?" Kestrel shouted. His science officer was frantically checking readings. The humans are using some kind of quantum disruptor. It's causing cascade failures in our power systems. Our ships are shutting down at the molecular level, entire Xanthari. Battle groups simply stopped functioning. Thousands of warships that had been the terror of the galaxy became floating metal coffins. The crews inside were alive but helpless, watching their instruments go dark one by one. On Xanthari Prime, Admiral Morrison's voice echoed through the planetary communication system. Xanthari Military Command. This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your orbital defenses have been neutralized. Your fleet has been disabled. Surrender now, and no more of your people will die. The response came from General Zekforth, the planet's military commander. We will never surrender. Two inferior beings. Our ground defenses will destroy you. I was hoping you'd say that, Morrison replied. Shadow Corps units had been infiltrating Xanthari Prime for hours using the intelligence Lisa had provided. They knew every tunnel, every security checkpoint, every weakness in the planet's defenses. While the space battle raged above, Danny Foster led his teams through the underground passages beneath the capital city. The Xanthari had built their command center inside a mountain, thinking it was impregnable. But Lisa had spent 3 years learning their security systems from the inside. Every door code, every sensor network, every defensive protocol had been compromised. Team Alpha, you're clear to breach the main command center, Danny whispered. Into his communicator. Team Beta, take the communication arrays, Mary Campbell's voice replied. She had insisted on leading the ground assault personally. The Shadow Corps moved like ghosts through the Xanthari stronghold. Their enemy had expected a frontal assault with explosions and gunfire. Instead, they faced small teams that appeared from nowhere, neutralized key targets, and vanished before alarms could be raised. Sir, a Xanthari officer reported to General Zekforth, we've lost contact with sections 7 through 15. Something is wrong. Before the general could respond, the lights in the command center went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Then the doors burst open and human soldiers poured in. General Zekforth, Mary Campbell, said, her weapon trained on the alien commander, you're under arrest for war crimes. The general reached for his sidearm, but Danny Foster was faster. A stun blast dropped the alien to the floor before he could draw his weapon. Command center secured, Mary reported. We have control of their military network. All across Xanthari Prime, Shadow Corps teams were capturing key installations. The planet's defenses, which had seemed so powerful, crumbled in less than 4 hours. Every important military leader was either captured or eliminated. Every weapons facility was under human control. In space, Admiral Morrison surveyed the wreckage of the Xanthari Grand Fleet, 3,000 ships reduced to powerless. HULKS, drifting through space. The most feared military force in the galaxy, had been defeated in a single day. 8. Open a channel to all Alliance worlds, Morrison ordered. When the connection was established, he spoke to the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Morrison of Earth. The Xanthari military has been neutralized. They can no longer threaten innocent people or execute prisoners for entertainment. He paused, looking at the disabled enemy ships around him.
Ow.
3 years ago, they killed Dr. Lisa Campbell and called it a misunderstanding. We chose to be patient. We chose to seek peace. They responded by torturing her for 3 years and then executing her as a public spectacle. His voice hardened. They thought our mercy was weakness. They thought our patience was cowardice. They were wrong. We gave them every chance to choose a different path. We chose cruelty instead. The communication ended with a simple message that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations. This is what happens when you mistake humanity's restraint for inability. We offered friendship. You chose war. Consequences are yours to bear. The war that was supposed to last months was over in less than a week. The Xanthari, who had terrorized this region of space for centuries, were completely defeated. Fleet was scrap metal. Their leadership was in prison. Their military was disbanded, and Earth had done it all while losing only 3 ships to accidents during the rapid deployment. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity proved that Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who chooses when to fight. The galaxy held its breath as news of the Xanthari defeat spread across thousands of worlds. In less than 1 week, humanity had destroyed the most powerful military force in Alliance space. Species that had feared the Xanthari for generations watched in amazement as Earth's small fleet accomplished what entire coalitions had never dared attempt. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the steps of the former Xanthari government building on their homeworld. Behind him, the planet's new flag flew in the alien wind. It wasn't Earth's flag or humanity's symbol. It was a simple white banner with Lisa Campbell's name written in multiple languages, including Xanthari script. "People of Xanthari Prime," Morrison said, his words broadcast across the planet, "the war is over. Your military leaders chose to respond to diplomacy with murder. They chose to answer peaceful contact with cruelty. The consequences of those choices are now clear." Thousands of Xanthari civilians gathered in the plaza below. Many looked afraid, expecting the humans to treat them the way their own military had treated other species. They had heard stories of what happened to defeated peoples in Xanthari space. "But we are not you," Morrison continued. "We did not come here to enslave your people or destroy your culture. We came to remove the threat you pose to innocent beings throughout the galaxy." Mary Campbell stepped forward. As the new military governor of Xanthari space, she would oversee the occupation and reconstruction. Her voice was firm but not cruel. "Your military is disbanded. Your warships are destroyed. Your weapons factories are closed. But your people will be fed, housed, and cared for. Your children will go to school. Your sick will receive medical treatment. You will learn to live without threatening others." An elderly Xanthari in the crowd called out, "What do you want from us?" Mary looked at the alien who had spoken. "We want you to understand that strength comes from protecting others, not from hurting them. We want you to see that mercy is not weakness, and we want to make sure that no other species ever has to fear what you did to Dr. Campbell." The rebuilding of Xanthari society began immediately. Earth's engineers repaired the damage from the brief war. Human doctors treated wounded civilians. Earth's teachers started schools that taught Xanthari children about cooperation instead of conquest. But the most important change was the Lisa Campbell Memorial Institute, built on the site where she had been executed. The institute became Center for Peaceful Research and Cultural Exchange, welcoming scientists from every species in the galaxy. Dr. Richard Hayes. Now, the institute's director worked alongside former Xanthari researchers who had volunteered to help. Many of them had been horrified by their government's treatment of Lisa and wanted to make amends. Dr. Campbell believed that different species could learn from each other. Richard explained to a mixed group of human and alien students. She died trying to share Earth's culture with the galaxy. This institute will continue her work. Other Alliance species watched Earth's response with growing amazement. Instead of revenge and cruelty, they saw justice and reconstruction. Instead of conquering the Xanthari homeworld, humans were rebuilding it. Ambassador Yelkarin of the Alterian Republic visited Xanthari Prime 6 months after the war ended. He found former Xanthari soldiers working in construction crews, building new hospitals and schools under human supervision. "This is not what we expected," he admitted to Mary Campbell during their meeting. "What did you expect?" Mary asked. "Genocide, slavery, the complete destruction of Xanthari culture. That's what they would have done to Earth if they had one." Shook her head. "We're not them. We fought this war to stop the killing, not to start more of it." The ambassador looked puzzled. "But they murdered your people. They tortured Dr. Campbell for 3 years. Don't you want revenge?" "We got our justice," Mary replied. "The people responsible for Lisa's death are in prison. The military that threatened peaceful species is gone. The government that ordered executions for entertainment has been replaced. What more revenge do we need?" But Earth's response sent shockwaves through the galaxy for another reason. Other species began to understand that humanity possessed military technology far beyond anything they had imagined. The casual way Earth had destroyed the Xanthari fleet suggested that this had not been humanity's full strength. President Helen Carter addressed the Alliance Council 6 months after the war. Representatives from dozens of species listened carefully to her words. "We know that some of you are afraid of us now," she said honestly. "You've seen what our military can do when we choose to use it. You're wondering if Earth will become the new Zenthari, using force to dominate weaker species." The council chamber was completely silent. "The answer is no," Carter continued. "We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We don't want to rule over you. We want to explore the galaxy, learn about your cultures, and share our own knowledge with those who are interested." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But understand this clearly. We will never again allow aggression against our people to go unanswered. We gave the Zenthari every chance to choose peace. They chose war instead. The results speak for themselves." Ambassador Vex Kalor, the Zenthari who had killed Lisa 3 years earlier, was brought before an alliance tribunal. He showed no remorse for his actions, insisting that he had been protecting his people from human threats. The human-made threatening gestures, he maintained. "My response was justified under our laws." The tribunal, now including human representatives, reviewed the evidence. Video footage from multiple angles showed Lisa approaching the ceremonial table with a cultural gift, making no threatening movements at all. "You murdered an innocent diplomat," the chief judge declared. "You then tortured her for 3 years before executing her as entertainment. You are guilty of war crimes against a peaceful species." Vexcalar was sentenced to life imprisonment. He would spend his remaining years in a human-run prison, treated humanely, but never again free to hurt innocent people. 2 years after the war, Admiral Morrison retired from active duty and became the commander of Kepler 7 Station, the same place where Lisa had first died. The station had been converted into a center for peaceful diplomacy and cultural exchange. Ships from dozens of species now docked there regularly. Young humans and aliens worked together in the research laboratories, pursuing the dream of cooperation that Lisa had died for. Morrison often stood in the memorial garden built in Lisa's honor. Reading the simple inscription on her statue, she came in peace, offered friendship, and died for believing in the best of both humanity and the galaxy. Danny Foster, now retired from Shadow Corps, taught self-defense classes to diplomats from various species. His lessons focused not just on physical protection, but on reading situations and avoiding conflicts before they started. "The best fight is the one you never have to have," he would tell his students. "But sometimes, evil people mistake your desire for peace as an invitation to harm you. When that happens, you must be ready to defend yourself and others." Mary Campbell remained as governor of Zenthari Space for 5 years, overseeing the complete transformation of their society. When she finally returned to Earth, the Zenthari people held a massive celebration in her honor. The former enemies had become something Earth had never expected, grateful allies who understood the difference between justice and revenge. On her last day as governor, Mary visited Lisa's memorial one final time. She placed a simple note at the base of the statue. "They killed you once, and we let it slide. The second time, we made sure there would never be a third. The galaxy is safer now because of your sacrifice." As Mary's ship left Zenthari Prime, for the final time, she looked back at the world that had once been humanity's greatest enemy. Now, it was a peaceful member of the galactic community, these people working alongside former enemies to build a better future. The lesson had been learned. Mercy was not weakness. Patience was not cowardice. But there were limits to both. And the galaxy now understood what happened when those limits were crossed. Earth had kept its promise. They had let it slide once. The second time, they had made sure everyone understood that humanity's restraint was a choice, not a limitation.